Shalom. So as you know, today Tuesday, the 14th, is the day of the Passover. So what I want to do is I want to go through the scriptures to deal with the 3 days and 3 nights of resurrection. Right? We're going to talk about what those 3 days were, what they represent, and how it actually took place. We're going to talk about the darkness that came over the land and the day of the event. What causes the darkness? We're going to talk about the spiritual alignment that causes those effects. Right, we're going to talk about the ladies that went to the sepulcher, the grave, right? And what did they actually see from what we thought took place, right? Also, I'm going to show you a table of how this actually looks, right? There's a saying that says, so was it in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. You're going to see that we're going to end up the same place where we started. Life is a cycle. All right, so we're going to open up with Matthew chapter 12 and verse 40. It says, "For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." Now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 5 so we can understand the foundation of days and nights. Genesis 1 verse 5 says, "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day." Right? So now let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 23 to get some understanding on the Passover. This is the book of Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 5. It says, "In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover." So that's what we're dealing with. Also, we just established that a day consists of two things, morning and evening. So there are sacrifices that are done in the morning, sacrifices that are done in the evening. There are no sacrifices done at night, except for when the Passover was, initiated, right? So let's go to the book of John chapter 19 and verse 31. It says, "The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation." Now we're going to get into that when we go to the table, to the diagram, right? It says that the bodies should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day. We understand that this preparation is the day before the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is the 7th day. Preparation is the what? The 6th day, right? It says, "For that Sabbath day was an high day." Now, high day, when your feast day falls on the Sabbath, right? It is called a high day. It's not a regular Sabbath. It's a high Sabbath, right? Now, let's get some more on the preparation day. This is the book of Exodus chapter 16 and verse 5. It says, "And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." So 6th day is the day before the Sabbath. It is the preparation day. So we're understanding that, right? Now we're going to go back to the book of John chapter 19 and we're going to see something particular. This is the book of John chapter 19 and verse 14. It says, "And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour, and he saith unto the Jews, Behold, your king." Are you hearing this? I think you missed it. Listen again. "And it was the preparation of the Passover." Listen. Preparation is the day before the what? The 7th day. The Passover was preparation day. So the 14th of the first month falls on what day of the week? The 6th day of the week. Are you guys understanding that? We're going to get more on it. Let's get into verse 15. It says, "But they cried out, Away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar." Let me go back because I think you guys missed this. Let's read verse 14 again. "And it was the preparation of the Passover." Here it comes. "And about the 6th hour." the 6th hour would be the same as what you call midday. The day consists of a what? A morning and an evening. Cosmically, what does this look like? From the sun at the eastern horizon until it's over at the zenith over your head, that's morning. From the 6th hour, you guys are getting it? It says, and it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour, and about midday, right? Passover was a what sacrifice again? Should we go back to Leviticus? It says evening sacrifice. Are you guys seeing the correlation now? So after midday is called evening. Passover is an evening sacrifice. And what did they say? Crucify him. Crucify him. Now, after he passed away, this is Matthew 27, verses 59 and 60. It says, and when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb. So the question is, when did this event take place again? In terms of date, it was the 14th of the first month. Now, we need to be specific about the 14th. What part of the 14th did this event take place? During the day or during the night, right? Remember, he passed away at, let's say, 4 p.m., right? Because the 9th hour ends at 4 p.m. in Roman time. Now, Joseph had to go by horse to Pilate, come back to get the body, right? So we know that takes up time right there, right? Then he had to prepare the spices and everything and prepare the body, right? So the book of Luke continues with this experience. We are in the book of Luke, chapter 23 and verse 54. It says, and that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. Did you guys get it? I don't think so. The key word you want from here is drew on. The Sabbath drew on, right? Because we know the stigma that, oh, the sunset thing. Remember, they had to prepare the body, do all of these things. It takes a lot of time. That means night would have already catch them if the Sabbath started the night, right? And we know the law about the preparation of the unalive body on the Sabbath day, right? So before we go further into this, I'm going to take you to the table, to the chart, and we're going to go through the process of the 3 days and 3 nights, and then we're going to come back and expound further on this drew on concept, right? And explain Matthew 28, what actually took place, because there's a big misunderstanding with Matthew 28. All right. And in the meantime, of course, you can look in the Strong's G2020. That's the Strong for drew on, so you guys can get your own understanding as well. But we're going to work it out through the scripture. So let's look at the chart first, the table, and then we come back to Matthew 28 to expound further. Now, this is a part I want you guys to get. I need you to understand. This is very important. The days of the week belong to the Most High. They cannot change, they cannot be altered. His ordinances remain the same. The days of the month belong to the terrestrial, belongs to us, right? Now, we understand the event took place on the 14th at evening. We understand that he passed away at, say, 4 p.m. Roman time, and the preparation, everything that Joseph did. So he laid him down, Joseph laid him down on the night of the 14th. So here he spent his first night there, right? Then on the 15th, he spent first night on the first day. In the night of the 15th, that made 2 nights and 1 day. Over on the 16th, that makes 3 nights and 2 days, right? And the 17th, this is where the completion is, 3 days and 3 nights. So anywhere after dusk, this is where the event took place. But no, I know what you're saying, right? You are saying, no, he rose on the first day, and the 17th is the second day of the week. Yes, of course, you are correct, right? Now, let's look at this, because like I said, the problem is where Mary went to the sepulchre. You guys think that that's when he rose. that's problematic. So we're going to go through the scriptures, but first we understand the 3 days and the 3 nights, right? This is the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the wave sheaf, right? These 7 days here, what was taking place in Jerusalem? Let's go back to the scriptures one more time and read it. So we are in Leviticus 23. It says, verse 6 says, and on the 15th day of the same month, which is the month of the Passover, on the 15th day, it says, of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. It says, in the first day he shall have an holy convocation. The first day, the 15th, right? It says, ye shall do no servile work, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. And in the 7th day is an holy convocation. So let's count 7 days. 15th, the entire week is the days of unleavened bread until the 21st, right? So we're going to deal with the Sabbath in Matthew 28 and see what is it actually talking about. But first, let's look back at the 3 days and the 3 nights. What do we understand here in terms of the moon? On the 14th night, the moon goes completely dark, right? The 15th is still dark. The 16th, it is still dark. And the 17th, the light finally resurrects. That's symbolic because when you look at darkness and light from the standpoint of good and evil, what did you see happen? What happens with an eclipse? The black moon, darkness, evil, blotted out what? The sun, light, wisdom, righteousness. So that's the symbolism of what was happening in the cosmos was also taking place in the earth, right? So you're noticing that the resurrection of light is always from the 17th. The 17th, because there's no what? A separation. Because remember, over here, they are aligned. Over here, guess what? The moon rises over on the west. Sun rises in the east. The moon comes over on the west. That's the symbolism. That's the correlation right there, right? So you're not going to be just listening to this teaching, but you're going to go outside and look. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and you'll see when the moon comes back. That's the same thing that happens that same time of the moon. So you're understanding that month comes from moon. Also, you can read in the book of Samuel's, where it talks about David and the new moon. It says at the new moon, which is the beginning of the month, David did not show up. It says the day after that, what did it call the day after that? The second day of the month. Now we're seeing that the 14th day of the month is darkness. So that means the beginning of the month starts with the full moon, right? Now let's go to Matthew 28 and deal with what actually took place. Let's see if Mary Magdalene actually went there on the actual first day. Now we're going to go to Matthew 28 and verse 1, and this passage is going to seal everything. Let's read it. It says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. Now, like I said, you're going to see how programmable the minds are, that you're looking at something and what you're seeing is not what is there. What you're seeing is something that's already here. Now, here's a question. You all did, this thing in English language where you have to figure out certain things, right? Literature or whatever it is. Here's a question. What we just read in Matthew 28, is it indicating that someone witnessed a resurrection, or is it indicating that someone went to a grave site? Let me read it again. Matthew 28 and verse 1, it says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to the sepulchre. They went to the grave site. They did not witness anything. Now, as you read through, you can read through the other verses for yourselves, but we're going to see who were the only witness of what happened there. Let's go down to verse 4. It says, and for fear of him, the keepers, the securities that were watching, because remember after the first day, they said, hey, remember the deceiver was saying he's going to rise after the 3 days. Let's put some security there. So this is what it's saying. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. Right? So they witnessed what actually took place after the third day and the third night. Now, what's interesting is now you're going to get your answer whether Mary actually witnessed someone being resurrected, or is it saying that she went to the grave site? Let's go to the book of Luke. So now we're in the book of Luke, chapter 24, and this is verse 23. It says, I'm going to the specific scripture, but you can read above to see that it's a continuation, and you'll see most people will tell you that, oh, the accounts in Matthew, Mark, they don't add up. Yes, this is why the mystery is not for everybody. It's not about they don't add up. They don't know how to piece it together because it was not meant for them. The mysteries are for you. It says, and they found not his body. They came, saying that they had seen a vision of angels which said that he was alive. Now you can go back to Matthew 28 and you're going to read from verse 2 where the angel was telling Mary Magdalene and the other Mary everything that happened with the earthquake and the stone, and it was a vision that they were seeing. A lot of you guys have trances, visions, whatever. It's the same experience. This is why you're going to understand now what was being said in Matthew 28, right? Let's go back to the book of Matthew 28. This is verse 5 of Matthew 28. It says, and the angel answered and said unto the woman, fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen. Now the question is, if Mary Magdalene had went to the thing 2 or 3 days after he was crucified, wouldn't she have at least seen the stone or something? She would have seen something. It was a vision that she was having. It was an angel that was speaking to her. She did not even see Yahweh himself there because he had already gone. Now let's go back to our table, right? We established that, hold on. We established that, how is it? Oh, it's reverse. Hope you guys can see it. The Feast of Unleavened Bread was a 7 days feast from the 15th to the 21st. So that means the 21st is also the 6th day of the week, right? Let's read Matthew 28 again. It says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. Remember, the 15th is a high Sabbath, not just a Sabbath. It says here the end of the Sabbath. This means it goes back to the regular weekly Sabbath. In the end of the Sabbath. So this is why Mary Magdalene, they never went to the, where is it? They never went to the grave on the 16th or the 17th. They had the Feast of Unleavened Bread going on in this week. It was after this. This is why it says, as it began to dawn toward, you know, when you cannot wait, as it reaches that. So they waited for the 7 days. They didn't. A lot of them didn't really believe. The women, they more believed, but the men, they had more doubts. But the woman went there right after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards what? First day of the week. Right? So she went there on the 23rd, not the 17th, not the 16th. It was 1 week after. So this is why most people cannot comprehend it. They're trying to fit the 3 days and 3 nights and tying it with Mary. No, it's wrong. And I'm going to show you another thing. Listen what it says again. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn. What is dawn? Dawn is the twilight period in the morning, just like dusk is the twilight period in the evening. So if it says towards the dawn is the beginning of the day, if the first day of the week starts at dawn, where do the other 6 days start? That's your question. That's the question that you need to ask yourself, because one day cannot start here and the other day start there. You see what I'm saying? No, we're going to go back to, remember we read in the book of Luke, when it says it was the preparation and the Sabbath drew on, and the word dawn is the same thing. So that's why I told you earlier, look for the word G20, the Strong's G2020, and you will realize that is the same thing it was saying in the book of Luke. Dawn. Every single day starts at dawn. So that means you guys need to go back to Genesis and try to understand what is it really saying. Evening is not night. Evening is part of the day. So I hope you guys can understand everything that was being broken down here. I know it's a lot of work because this would require a lot of us to give up our beliefs, and that's the hardest thing because we're still stuck into identification with beliefs. This is why when we are being challenged, we react with anger and call people names out of character and so forth, right? So the first part of our soul's journey is to break from identification, right? Once you no longer identify with your beliefs and the doctrines, you understand that this is you and this is the doctrine. Right now you are here, entanglement. Once you start to do this, then you will feel comfortable when your doctrine is being questioned, and that's what fear is. Because of fear, we don't want to question our beliefs. So when somebody asks us question, we feel threatened, not because the other person is an actual threat. It threatens the belief, and you're identified with it, so you feel as if the person is actually threatening you. This is the journey of the soul. Separation, and then you reintegrate, but not with entanglement, but still understanding, oh, consciousness is one. This is part of me, this is part of me, but yet you still understand you're separate. Shalom.